So, for the 5th anniversary of me making movies, I released an official timeline of when, what the connecting parts of the Silver Spotlight films were. When they came out, the plotline leading into the survivors. At the end of the video, I said that I hoped to see you in 5 years, and well, here I am. It's now the 10th anniversary of me making movies and telling stories with Silver Spotlight films. That's the train that lives nearby, but this isn't a feature film, so I'm just going to go through it. Anyway, so I thought it was time to update the timeline officially, since it's been 10 years, confirm a couple of things, and retcon a year or two to make it better align with the whole universe. Basically just, the first video was made to explain how things connect in the survivors, whereas this is just going to be like, when does each movie take place? And most of it is straightforward, but not all of it is. Let's get this timeline on the screen real quick. Alright, there we go. So, in the year 2007, Wolfster Part 1 is basically what starts this cinematic universe. It is a very cheap, dated film with some problematic humor, but it still is what it is. A lot of people still get a kick out of it. You know, some people that have watched it on Steve Buster think it's funny, and if nothing else, people like the Wolfster character. So at the end of the day, because of that, I'm going to keep Wolfster canon, even if we don't really see him that often. Likewise, 2008 is when Wolfster Part 2 takes place. So Wolfster is by far the first character that exists in this universe. So we skip ahead a bit. 2012 is when the events of the Slasher Hunter take place, and this is where a lot of the world building of the Silver Spotlight film universe is, because this is what establishes that on this world there are a bunch of slashers. There are so many slashers that their existence is somewhat of a commonplace expectation. And the government has agents that deal with these slashers, and that's what Slasher Hunter is about. We also establish the survivor gene, we establish, again, just most of the characters in terms of the slasher part of this world. This is normal, this happens, and that is that. Now, unfortunately, Basic Slaughter is still canon. I don't really want it to be, because I hate Basic Slaughter, but I have said ever since I made Everyone Must Die that Everyone Must Die is, in actuality, a direct follow-up, a direct sequel to Basic Slaughter. The opening scene of Everyone Must Die is the ending of Basic Slaughter. So it would be ridiculous to completely ignore that Basic Slaughter exists. It's bad. Don't watch it. It's bad. But it does exist. Nothing of importance really happens. It's the first thing that's starting to introduce the concept of slasher that has, like, no style, no iconic mask, no nothing, just showing up and killing people in a town. And that's what Basic Slaughter is. And of course that means in 2013, like the day after, the events of Everyone Must Die take place. And that's, again, that's the continuation of, there's these killers. What they are doesn't matter yet, and we find out that there's a bunch of them, there's multiple killers, and the Slasher Hunters are even trying to take care of it, because the post-credit scene of Everyone Must Die is Winslow from the Slasher Hunter recruiting Will from Everyone Must Die. So, after that, in 2014 is the short The Killer. That takes place in within the next year. I don't have an exact month for that one, sorry. So sue me. But that one's just the short showing like a killer on the first day of the job, and that's when we bring back the original Slasher Hunter to kill a killer. Nothing much else to talk about there, except that the ending of The Killer is the first hint at Duke the Carousel Unicorn from Karis Hell. It references like Wolfster, references Captaincy. Like it's already like pushing everything's connected. In 2014, later in 2014, so at about the same time in 2014, you have Captaincy and the Terror of Leviathan. Now, this is again something that, Zoltan Zilai paid me to make. It is his film, but I asked if his film could take place in my world. He agreed, so Captaincy and the Terror of Leviathan is a Silver Spotlight universe film. I don't know if we'll ever see the characters again. I don't know if any of that will ever come back. But somewhere, Captain Z and Glenn Stewart are doing things. And at the end of that, Chief Winslow tries to recruit Captain Z, which, if you've seen the movie, you know. In the year 2015 is when Red Christmas takes place. And that's the film about Tara kidnapping and killing men. She meets Axe, who kills her, and the film ends with the killers trying to recruit Tara, and it doesn't work out, obviously. But what's interesting here, that I want to point out in terms of, the timeline, is that Tara actually references events from what was originally the planned Captain Z 2. Captain Z's Christmas Caper. She talks about how there's some sort of chemical spill at the mall nearby, and that's why she's not going to the mall. Now, this was the original proposed sequel to Captain Z. It did not happen because Captain Z was not a financial success. So Captain Z's Christmas Caper never came to fruition. It never existed. But since it is being referenced by other characters, I think it happens. In my opinion, as the creator, as the guy in charge of the Silver Spotlight world, the events of Captain Z's Christmas Caper happened. And what happened was that there's a chemical spill at the local mall at Christmas time. It turned a bunch of mall Santas into mutants. And then Captain Z and Glenn had to save the real Santa Claus at this mall, which was going to get bombed in order to contain the mutation. Again, you'll never see it, but it happened. Maybe eventually we can explore it in a short story or comic book, but it happened, just we didn't get to make it, which is unfortunate. Now, I will say, this has nothing to do with the timeline, but Zoltan has been toying with the idea of making another Captain Z film with a much smaller budget, just something to kind of get the gang back together in order to use the character again and move forward. I don't know if that'll happen. But if it does, that will not be Captain Z's Christmas Caper. It will be a new story. It will be something else that takes place today, as opposed to in 2015. So we move ahead. In 2016, that's when the events of Carousel take place. In 2016 is when the events of Carousel happen, when Duke wakes up, when Duke kills that whole house full of young adults, and when Duke's son is born. That happens in 2016. In 2017 is when the events of the Survivors happen. So the Survivors takes place after Carousel. And the only reason why that matters is because there's nothing that gets referenced. The Survivors is when all the characters from the previous films get together and they fight the killers and they shut down the killers, and the killers are gone now. Wolfster comes back, Slasher Hunter comes back, Captain Z comes back, Will comes back. They wipe out the killers. The only reason why the year matters for the Survivors is that at the end of the film, Winslow is talking about that he got reports of the events of Carousel, and he wants Will to start investigating it. It's the only reason why that takes place in 2017 as opposed to 2016. But, it matters. Also in 2017, except on Earth 2, is when Super Task Force 1 takes place. So, while Will is fighting the killers on Earth 1, Earth 2, Jason is fighting Emperor Zagel, and that film ends with Emperor Zagel getting blasted with the huge Emerald Big Bang, which, at the time, it seemed like it destroyed Zagel, but what it actually did was send Zagel through the pocket dimension, now this pocket dimension is where all the mechs get held in Super Task Force 1, and the pocket dimension is the same one that the Leviathan is in Captain Z. And back 5 years ago in the first timeline video, I even said this pocket dimension can serve as a bridge, and that is also referenced in the Killer short film. So Emperor Zagel actually gets sent through the pocket dimension to Earth 1 in 2017. Alright, So, Christmas 2017. The last thing that happens in 2017 is a Meowie Christmas. This is where we are introduced to the Meowie Chronicles and Whiskers and Wally, and that's where that all happens. Christmas 2017. Super easy. October 2018 is when a Meowie Halloween takes place. Then, okay, so the next thing on the timeline is a Meowie St. Patrick's Day, which happens in March of 2020. I will say officially that Wally and Whiskers went on a bunch of adventures on a bunch of holidays from October 2018 to February 2020. Valentine's Day, Arbor Day, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Hanukkah, every possible holiday, something probably happened between October 2018 and February 2020. We will not see those unless, I change my mind later. That's something we can explore with books. That's something we can explore with comics. Something I can explore with shorts. I don't know. Stuff happened. I don't have a plan. It's not like I have some Bible of the Meowie Chronicles and I know exactly what happened on each holiday, except that Chuck died Thanksgiving. That's the only thing that I definitely have to confirm. He died Thanksgiving 2019. Rest in peace, Chuck. So yeah, the events of Meowie St. Patrick's Day, March 2020. Then a Meowie Christmas Vacation is December 2020. And that's when, that's the current events of Whiskers trying to get Wally to get back in time, Wally's match with Emperor Zigel in the wrestling ring. And of course, we do have the alternate timeline, which, there you go. It's that's the timeline where Wally isn't there for, and Zigel takes over the world. And then the events of A Meowie Christmas Vacation take place in the year 2050 of this alternate timeline. Not much to say, except that Zigel did canonically go on a rampage and murdered every single person that looked like me. In the alternate timeline, Wolfster got killed by Zigel, Frank got killed by Zigel, Joe would have gotten killed by Zigel, Joe from Carousel. Glenn Stewart was killed by Zigel. Like, every single character that I've ever played was murdered by Zigel because he was trying to find Jason. I'm sorry, he was trying to find Wally because Wally flipped him and Wally looked like Jason. And unfortunately, those events didn't happen. Again, maybe we can explore that in a miniseries, maybe we can explore that in books. I don't know. I'm not planning on ever exploring that timeline, but there is 30 years of Emperor Zigel doing shit on Earth 1. So, I mean, there's stuff there. If you want to do fan fiction, do fan fiction. That's cool. Then we go back to the original timeline, and then 2021 is when the events of Carousel II will take place. 5 years after Carousel 1. So, Robbie, Duke's son, is 5 years old officially. Duke has been going on adventures for the past 5 years. We'll hear about some of that. Maybe we'll see some of that in the future. But 2021 is when that film takes place, and hopefully also when it comes out. Alright, so that's the Silver Spotlight timeline now. That's the 10 years of me making movies plus, and that's when everything takes place in the order it takes place. So if you are an insane person, you could subscribe to Steve Buster if you haven't already. This is going on Steve Buster first, but eventually it'll be a general video for everyone. If you're an insane person, subscribe to Steve Buster or buy all the physical copies, and you can watch all of my movies in chronological order. I don't know why you would do that. I don't think you should do that, but it's an option. Now you know what to watch in what order. So yeah, so that's the video for the 10-year anniversary. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for liking my stuff. Thanks for supporting my stuff. And, I don't know what to say. Carousel II is a big deal, and we're really hoping that it does well. And if it does, we're going to keep on pushing forward in a big way. And hopefully that happens so that I can make another one of these in 5 more years. Thank you so much. SteveBuster.com, SilverSpotlightFilms.com. I've been Steve Brzezinski. Oh, also Instagram @DarkMullet.